There's a silent epidemic happening right now. It's not making headlines, it's not trending on social media, but it's quietly destroying millions of lives every single day. And chances are, you're infected too. The symptoms? Constant worry about losing what you have. Endless anxiety about things not going according to plan. A deep aching fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. This epidemic has a name, and once you understand what it is, your entire life will change. But what if I told you something that might shock you? What if those very things you think are protecting you are actually the source of your deepest pain? I've spent decades studying human behavior, watching people, listening to their stories, and I've discovered something profound, something that will change the way you see your entire life. The things you're most attached to, the things you can't imagine living without. These are often the very things that are making you miserable. You see, there's a difference between loving something and being attached to it. Love is freeing. Attachment is suffocating. Love says, I want you to be happy. Attachment says, I want you to make me happy. Love flows. Attachment grasps. Love trusts. Attachment fears. And right now, you're probably thinking about someone or something in your life. Something you're holding onto so tightly that your knuckles are white. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a dream of how your life should look. Maybe it's even an image of who you think you should be. But here's what you need to understand. That tight grip you have, it's not love, it's fear. And that fear is eating you alive from the inside out. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a monkey. This monkey sees a banana inside a jar. The opening of the jar is just wide enough for the monkey to put its hand in, so the monkey reaches in and grabs the banana. But now, with its fist closed around the banana, the monkey's hand is too big to pull back, out of the jar. The monkey is trapped. All it has to do is let go of the banana, and it would be free. But it won't. It can't. Because in its mind, that banana is everything. You are that monkey, and your attachments are that banana. Think about the last time you were truly upset. Really dig deep here. What was it about? I'm willing to bet it wasn't about what was actually happening. It was about what you thought should be happening instead. Your attachment to how things should go. Your attachment to being right. Your attachment to being in control. Your attachment to other people's opinions of you. This is the trap that most people live their entire lives in. They're so busy holding on to their bananas that they never realize they're prisoners of their own making. And society doesn't help. From the moment you're born, you're taught to attach. Attach to achievements. Attached to possessions, attached to relationships, attached to your reputation, attached to your plans for the future. The message is clear. The more you can hold on to, the happier you'll be. But it's a lie, and deep down you know it's a lie. Because the more you accumulate, the more you have to protect, the more you have to worry about, the more you have to lose. Your attachments don't bring you security, they bring you anxiety. Look at your phone right now. How many times today have you checked it? How many times have you felt that little spike of anxiety when you couldn't find it? That's attachment. You've attached your sense of connection, your sense of worth, even your sense of safety to a small electronic device. And when it's not there, you feel lost. But your phone is just the beginning. You're attached to so much more. You're attached to your morning routine. When it gets disrupted, your whole day feels off. You're attached to your favorite parking spot. When someone else is in it, you feel frustrated. You're attached to your children succeeding. When they struggle, you take it as a personal failure. You're attached to being seen as smart or funny or attractive or successful. And every time reality doesn't match up with that image, you suffer. Every time someone disagrees with you, or doesn't laugh at your joke, or doesn't notice your accomplishments, it feels like a little death. This is what attachment does to you. It makes you a prisoner of circumstances you cannot control. And here's the cruel irony. The things you're most attached to are often the things you end up destroying with that very attachment. You're so afraid of losing your relationship that you become jealous, controlling, needy, and what happens? You push the other person away. You're so attached to your child's success that you become a helicopter parent, never letting them fail, never letting them learn. And what happens? They become anxious, dependent, unable to handle life's challenges. You're so attached to being right that you can't listen to other perspectives. So attached to your plans that you can't adapt when life throws you curveballs. So attached to your past that you can't be present. So attached to your future that you miss what's happening right now. I want you to think about someone you know who seems genuinely peaceful. Someone who handles life's ups and downs with grace. Someone who doesn't seem to get rattled by the things that would send most people into a tailspin. What do you notice about them? I'm willing to bet they're not attached to outcomes. They care deeply about things, but they hold them lightly. They love their family, but they don't try to control every aspect of their family members' lives. They work hard, but they don't define themselves by their achievements. They have preferences, but they don't fall apart when things don't go their way. They've learned the secret that I'm sharing with you right now. The secret is this: you can love without attaching. You can care without clinging. You can engage fully with life without needing to control every outcome. But how? How do you let go when everything in you is screaming to hold on tighter? How do you release your grip when you're terrified that everything will fall apart if you do? The first step is recognizing your attachments for what they really are. Not love, not care, not commitment, but fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of not being enough, fear of not being in control. Every attachment you have is rooted in a fear. You're attached to your job because you're afraid of financial insecurity. You're attached to your relationship status because you're afraid of being alone. You're attached to your children's achievements because you're afraid of being seen as a bad parent. You're attached to your political beliefs because you're afraid of uncertainty. But here's what you need to understand about fear. It's not protecting you from anything real. Most of the things you're afraid of will never happen. And the ones that do happen, you'll handle them. You're stronger than you think, more adaptable than you believe, more resilient than you imagine. The second step is understanding that letting go doesn't mean not caring. It means caring in a healthier way. It means loving without conditions. It means giving your best effort without being attached to specific results. It means being present instead of constantly worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. Let me give you a concrete example. If you're a parent, you probably want the best for your children. That's natural, that's beautiful. But if you're attached to them succeeding in exactly the way you think they should, you'll make both yourself and them miserable. You'll micromanage. You'll live in constant anxiety about their choices. You'll take their failures as your own. But if you love them without attachment, something magical happens. You support them, you guide them, you believe in them, but you also trust them to find their own way. You trust life to teach them what they need to learn. And paradoxically, they're more likely to thrive because they're not carrying the weight of your expectations. They're free to be themselves. This applies to every area of your life. Your career, your relationships, your health, your dreams. Pour your heart into them. Give them everything you've got, but hold the results lightly. Trust that whatever happens, you'll be okay. Trust that life has a wisdom that's bigger than your individual plans. I know this might sound scary. Your ego is probably screaming right now, but if I don't control everything, everything will fall apart. That's the voice of attachment talking. And it's lying to you. The truth is, most things are out of your control anyway. You can't control other people's choices. You can't control the economy. You can't control the weather. You can't control aging. You can't control what other people think of you. You can't even control your own thoughts and feelings most of the time. So what can you control? Your responses, your choices in this moment, your attitude, your effort, your integrity, your compassion, your presence. Focus on what you can actually influence and let go of the rest. This is where real freedom begins. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you have so much more energy for what actually matters. When you stop being attached to specific outcomes, you can actually enjoy the process. When you stop clinging to how things should be, you can appreciate how things are. But I want to be honest with you. This isn't easy. Your attachments feel safe. They feel like they're protecting you. Letting go feels dangerous, like you're giving up, like you don't care anymore, like you're being irresponsible. These feelings are normal. They're part of the process. Your ego has spent years, maybe decades, building these attachments. It's not going to give them up without a fight. It's going to tell you that you need them, that life will be meaningless without them, that you'll become lazy or indifferent. But this is where you have to trust something deeper than your ego. You have to trust that there's a part of you that knows how to live without attachments, a part of you that's already free, a part of you that's been waiting for you to let go so it can show you what life can really be like. Think about the times in your life when you felt most at peace, most joyful, most alive. I'm willing to bet those weren't the times when you had everything under control. They were the times when you were fully present, when you weren't worrying about the past or the future, when you weren't trying to impress anyone or prove anything, when you were just being, just experiencing, just flowing with life. That's what's available to you all the time when you release your attachments. Not a life without caring, but a life with a deeper kind of caring. Not a life without engagement, but engagement without desperation. Not a life without goals, but goals held lightly, like a bird in your open palm. Let me tell you about the most common attachments that are probably causing you suffering right now. First, your attachment to other people's opinions. You check social media and feel bad because someone else's life looks better than yours. You say things you don't mean because you want to be liked. You avoid taking risks because you're afraid of looking foolish. You dim your light because you don't want to make others uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business. They're based on their own fears, their own insecurities, their own limited perspectives. They have nothing to do with who you really are. And even if they did, so what? You can't live an authentic life while constantly worrying about what others think. It's impossible. Second, your attachment to being right. You argue with people on the internet. You can't let go of old resentments. You replay conversations in your head thinking of all the things you should have said. You take different opinions as personal attacks, but being right doesn't make you happy. It makes you rigid. It cuts you off from learning. It destroys relationships. It keeps you trapped in a tiny worldview. Third, your attachment to control. You plan everything obsessively. You get upset when traffic makes you late. You can't delegate because no one does things exactly the way you would. You worry constantly about things that might go wrong. But control is an illusion. The more tightly you try to control life, the more chaotic it becomes. The more you try to force outcomes, the more resistance you create. Fourth, your attachment to your past self. You define yourself by your mistakes. You can't forgive yourself for things that happened years ago. You limit your future based on your past failures. Or maybe you're attached to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You keep trying to be who you were in high school or college or before you had kids, but you're not that person anymore. And that's okay. That's how growth works. Fifth, your attachment to how others should behave. Your partner should be more affectionate. Your boss should appreciate you more. Your kids should be grateful. Your friends should call more often. Politicians should make better decisions. People should drive more carefully. But everyone is on their own journey. Everyone is dealing with their own struggles. Everyone is doing the best they can with their current level of awareness. Sixth, your attachment to your stuff. Your house, your car, your clothes, your gadgets. You work long hours to afford things you don't really need. You stress about money constantly. You compare what you have to what others have. You feel bad when your things get damaged or lost. But stuff is just stuff. It can't make you happy. It can make life convenient or comfortable, but not meaningful. And finally, your attachment to life going according to your plan. You have a picture in your head of how your life should unfold, what you should achieve by a certain age, who you should be with, how your career should progress, where you should be living. But life has its own intelligence, its own timing, its own plan for you, and that plan is usually better than anything you could have imagined. Each of these attachments creates suffering. Not occasionally, not when things go wrong, all the time. Because attachments are based on resistance to what is. They're based on the idea that reality is wrong and needs to be fixed. But reality is not wrong. Reality is exactly what it needs to be for your growth, your learning, your awakening. This doesn't mean you become passive. This doesn't mean you stop having preferences or working toward goals. It means you engage with life from a place of trust instead of fear, from a place of curiosity instead of control, from a place of love instead of attachment. When you start to let go, something beautiful happens. You stop taking things so personally. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of getting angry, you wonder what's going on in their life. Your teenager rolls their eyes at you, and instead of feeling disrespected, you remember what it was like to be that age. Your friend cancels plans, and instead of feeling rejected, you trust that they have their reasons. You start to see that most of what you thought was about you really wasn't about you at all. People's behavior says more about them than it does about you. Life's challenges aren't personal vendettas against you. They're just life being life. Random, unpredictable. Sometimes beautiful, sometimes difficult, always temporary. And in that space of non-attachment, you find something incredible. Peace. Not the peace that comes from having everything go your way. The peace that comes from knowing that whatever happens, you'll be okay. That comes from trusting life. That comes from knowing who you really are underneath all your roles and achievements and possessions. You are not your job title. You are not your relationship status. You are not your bank account. You are not your mistakes. You are not your successes. You are not even your thoughts and feelings. You are the awareness that observes all of these things, the consciousness that experiences them, the space in which they all arise and pass away. And that awareness, that consciousness, that space, it doesn't need anything to be complete. It's already whole. It's already perfect. It's already free. Your attachments are like clouds covering the Sunday. The sun doesn't stop shining because of the clouds. And your true nature doesn't stop being perfect because of your attachments. You just can't see it clearly. So how do you begin this process of letting go? How do you start dissolving these attachments that have been running your life for so long? Start small. Start with something that doesn't feel too threatening. Maybe it's your attachment to your morning routine, and try doing things in a different order tomorrow. See what happens. Notice the resistance. Notice the discomfort. But don't judge it. Just observe it. Or start with your attachment to being right in small conversations. The next time someone says something you disagree with, instead of correcting them, just listen. See if you can understand their perspective. See if there might be some truth in what they're saying, even if you don't agree completely. Or start with your attachment to how long things should take. If you're stuck in traffic, instead of getting frustrated, use it as an opportunity to be present. Look around. Breathe. Listen to music. Have a conversation with yourself about what you're grateful for. The key is to approach this process with gentleness, with curiosity, with compassion for yourself. You're not trying to eliminate all attachments overnight. You're not trying to become some detached, emotionless robot. You're trying to love more freely, to live more openly, to trust more deeply. And as you practice this, you'll start to notice something amazing. The things you were so afraid of losing, when you hold them more lightly, they often become more beautiful. The relationship you were clinging to desperately becomes more loving when you give the other person space to choose you freely. The career you were attached to for security becomes more fulfilling when you focus on contribution rather than outcome. It's like that old saying, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was. But the real freedom isn't in what comes back. The real freedom is in the setting free itself. In the moment you open your hands and trust. This is what psychologists and researchers have been discovering for decades. This is what modern neuroscience confirms about how your brain creates suffering. This is what therapists see every day in their practice. Your peace doesn't depend on your circumstances. It depends on your relationship to your circumstances. And that relationship is something you can change right now, in this moment. You don't need to wait for the perfect conditions. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need to wait until your life gets easier. You can start letting go right now. What would it feel like to go through your day without needing anything to be different than it is? What would it feel like to love the people in your life without needing them to love you back in exactly the way you want? What would it feel like to work hard on your goals without being attached to when or how they happen? What would it feel like to be completely yourself without worrying about what anyone else thinks? This is what's available to you. This is your birthright. This is what you came here to discover. Not a life without challenges, but a life where challenges don't disturb your inner peace. Not a life without emotions, but a life where emotions flow through you without getting stuck. Not a life without caring, but a life where your caring comes from love rather than fear. You see, the deepest truth about attachments is this: they're not really about the things you think you're attached to. They're about your attachment to being separate, your attachment to being small, your attachment to being limited, your attachment to being afraid, but you are not separate. You are connected to everything. You are not small. You are infinite consciousness having a human experience. You are not limited. You contain multitudes. You are not meant to be afraid. You are meant to be free. Your attachments are just old habits, old ways of thinking, old programming. And like any habit, they can be changed. Like any programming, they can be updated. Like any old way of thinking, they can be replaced with wisdom. The wisdom that you are already whole. The wisdom that you are already enough. The wisdom that you are already loved. The wisdom that you are already free. The wisdom that everything you've been looking for outside of yourself has been inside you all along. This is not just spiritual philosophy. This is practical psychology. This is how your mind works. This is how suffering is created, and this is how it can be ended. When you understand the mechanism, you can change it. When you see the pattern, you can break it. When you recognize the trap, you can step out of it. And the moment you do, everything changes. Not your circumstances, not the world around you, but your experience of it all. The same life that was causing you suffering becomes a source of joy. The same relationships that were causing you anxiety become opportunities for love. The same challenges that were overwhelming you become invitations to grow. This is what I want for you. This is why I'm sharing these words with you today. Because I know what it's like to live in the prison of attachment. And I know what it's like to taste the freedom that comes from letting go. And I want you to taste that freedom too. But don't take my word for it. Don't believe me just because I'm telling you this. Experiment. Try it for yourself. Start small. Start today. Start right now. Notice one attachment you're carrying, one thing you're gripping too tightly, and see what happens when you loosen your grip just a little bit. You might be surprised by what you discover. You might find that the thing you were so afraid of losing was actually keeping you from receiving something even better. You might find that the control you thought you needed was actually creating more chaos. You might find that the safety you thought your attachments were providing was actually a prison. And in that discovery, you might just find yourself, the real you, the you that existed before all the attachments, the you that will remain when all the attachments are gone, the you that is already free, already whole, already perfect, just waiting for you to remember. That remembering is happening right now as you listen to these words. Something in you recognizes their truth. Something in you is ready to let go. Something in you knows that there's a better way to live. Trust that something. Follow that something. Let that something guide you home to yourself. Because in the end, that's what letting go of attachments really is. It's coming home. Home to your true nature, home to your natural state of peace, home to the love that you are. And once you're home, you realize that everything you were looking for was already there, waiting for you to stop searching long enough to see it. Your attachments have been your teachers. They've shown you where you're not free. They've pointed you toward what needs to be healed. They've been gifts, even though they felt like burdens. But now their job is done. Now it's time to thank them and let them go. Now it's time to step into the freedom that has always been yours. And here's something beautiful that happens when you truly begin this journey. When you start releasing your grip on outcomes, you become present to miracles. Small ones at first. The way sunlight filters through your window in the morning. The genuine smile of a stranger. The sound of rain on your roof. These things were always there. But your attachments kept you too busy, too worried, too focused on what wasn't working to notice them. You see, attachment is like wearing sunglasses indoors. Everything looks darker than it really is. You miss the subtle beauty, the gentle magic, the quiet gifts that life is constantly offering you. When you take off those sunglasses, when you release those attachments, the world doesn't change. Your perception of it does. I want you to understand something crucial right now. This isn't about becoming a doormat. This isn't about not caring. This isn't about giving up your dreams or accepting mediocrity. Non-attachment doesn't mean non-involvement. It means involvement without desperation. It means caring without clinging. It means loving without losing yourself. When you're not attached to being seen as the smartest person in the room, you actually become wiser because you listen more, you learn more. You're open to perspectives you would have dismissed before. When you're not attached to always being right, you discover that being wrong can be liberating. It frees you from the exhausting job of defending positions that maybe weren't serving you anyway. When you're not attached to your children being perfect, You give them permission to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow. And paradoxically, they often thrive more because they're not carrying the weight of your expectations. They're free to discover who they really are instead of trying to be who you think they should be. This is the great paradox of attachment. The things you grip most tightly are often the things you harm the most with that very gripping, like trying to capture a butterfly. The gentler your touch, the more likely it is to stay. The tighter you squeeze, the more likely it is to be crushed. Your relationships work the same way. Your career works the same way. Your peace of mind works the same way. Hold them lightly, with love and respect, and they flourish. Grip them with fear and control, and they begin to die. So as you leave this conversation, as you go back to your life, I want you to carry this question with you. Where am I gripping too tightly? Ask it in your relationships, ask it in your work, ask it in your dreams, ask it in your daily routines. And when you find those places, breathe, soften, trust, let go just a little bit more. Because on the other side of that letting go is a version of you that you can barely imagine right now. A version that moves through life with grace instead of force, with trust instead of fear, with love instead of attachment. That version of you is not some distant possibility. It's who you really are underneath all the gripping, and it's time to set that person free. Let me share something that might surprise you. The most successful people, the ones who seem to have it all together, they understand this principle intuitively. They work hard, but they don't work from desperation. They care deeply, but they don't make their happiness dependent on specific outcomes. They invest in relationships, but they don't try to control other people's responses. Watch a master chef in the kitchen. They care about the meal they're preparing. They use the finest ingredients. They apply learned techniques. But they're not anxious about each individual dish. They trust their skills. They adapt when something doesn't go according to plan. They know that one burnt souffle doesn't define their worth as a chef. Now watch someone who's attached to being seen as perfect. They're stressed before they even start cooking. They panic when something goes slightly wrong. They take any criticism as a personal attack. They can't enjoy the process because they're so focused on the outcome. Who do you think creates better food? Who do you think enjoys cooking more? This same principle applies to everything in your life. The parent who's not attached to their child being a certain way actually raises more confident children. The entrepreneur who's not attached to a specific timeline often builds more successful businesses. The person who's not attached to finding love often attracts healthier relationships. Why? Because desperation repels. Attachment creates pressure, and pressure kills creativity, spontaneity, and joy. When you're not attached, you're free to respond authentically to what's actually happening instead of forcing reality to match your expectations. Think about the last time you had a really good day. A day when everything seemed to flow, when you felt connected to the people around you, when challenges felt manageable, when you felt alive and present. I guarantee you weren't attached to anything in those moments. You were just being, just responding, just flowing with what was actually happening instead of fighting it.